Welcome to Civil Bar Stacker, folks. I hope everybody's doing well and enjoying their Sunday. That's right, folks. Today is Sunday, and we've got a very special show for you today, folks. Now, we've got a couple of topics to discuss, and one of those topics involves a topic that we've discussed on the channel before, and that involves the Engelhard American Prospector Standard Production Rounds. Now, a lot of you are aware, especially those who have watched the channel, a lot of you are aware that there are 7 different rounds, all with different dates and different reverses. And so I'll take a little bit of time to give you all a refresher on those standard production rounds and the different types, but I also have some other things that I want to discuss for a little bit of the more advanced collectors when it comes down to some of the proof variations of the prospectors as well. So I'm going to do a little bit of a breakdown that kind of compares the standard production American Prospector rounds produced by Engelhard versus the Prospector proof rounds, which are a little bit more scarce but also produced by Engelhard over the span of kind of the same year range. So that's a very, very interesting thing to take a look at the nuances between the standard production Engelhard Prospector rounds and the proof variation of the Engelhard Prospector round. So I'm excited to get into those nuances as well. I'm also excited to open up a brand new package that we picked up from our community member, Don't Ask. I'm very, very excited to have picked up another 5 pieces from his hand-poured selection, and so now I'm happy to say that we've got a nice little collection going of Don't Ask hand-poured pieces, and slowly but surely they will find their way onto the website and onto various activities that we do here at SBS to bring these bars out into the community. And we've also got some other beautiful pieces forthcoming soon by the one and only Don't Ask. And so before we get into the new pickups by Don't Ask, I would like to get into our topic for today, which has to do with the Engelhard American Prospector rounds. Okay, now many of you are aware, and many of you have had this idea kind of ingrained into your head, that there are 7 different standard production Engelhard Prospector rounds. And you know, that's a fair assessment. These are kind of the most widely known rounds out there when it comes down to privately minted rounds. These are the first privately minted rounds that were kind of mass produced and distributed to the public, and so these are very, very iconic, very, very recognizable, and very, very widely accepted rounds, bullion rounds. They were looked at as the go-to standard because you could be rest assured that Engelhard was a reputable name. And so back in the day, when vintage was not kind of looked at as something that was highly sought after, a lot of this stuff would be thrown into the melter and repurposed into some new silver. And so a lot of times Engelhard silver was the first to be put into the melter. And why was that? Because people looked at the Engelhard name and they said, okay, well, this is some trustworthy silver, it's some high purity silver, and so toss that into the melter because we want only the best. And so a lot of these things were compromised, a lot of these things were thrown into the melter. And so that's why I am very, very obsessive about wanting to preserve that history. For me, the whole idea behind collecting vintage is because I don't want somebody else to collect it and then throw it into the melter. So it's almost kind of like a personal mission of mine, in addition to the fact that I'm stacking for my own personal benefit and for my own family's own personal benefit. But part of it, honestly, deep down, is that I don't want somebody to throw this beautiful piece inside the melter. I just don't want it to happen, right? And so I prefer that maybe I should just hold on to them. I feel that that might be a better idea. So now, when it comes down to the standard production Engelhard Prospector rounds, you've got different dates ranging from 1982 all the way up to 1987. So you got 1982, 83, 84, and then what happened was Engelhard made a shift. You notice how the 82, 83, 84, these all have this E logo on the reverse, right? So after 84, actually, what ended up happening was that Engelhard decided, hey, we're going to make a switch on the reverse, and we're going to switch that up to an eagle. So over here you notice you have an 84 dated right here, 1984, and it's got an E logo there, but then you've also got a 1984 over here as well, but that has an eagle on the back. So that's kind of the one main difference that you would see when you are just starting to get an Engelhard. You realize, oh, there's actually two 1984s that I need to collect. There's an E logo and an eagle reverse. And so because of that, actually I specialize. SPS specializes in vintage, and we specialize in Engelhards, and we specifically specialize in American Prospector rounds. And so there's always going to be an opportunity to buy any of these year Prospector rounds at varying premiums. The 1983 by far with the E logo is by far the most elusive, the most highly sought after, the most highest premium. This thing will regularly sell it multiple times above spot, and it's just regular. We sell through many of these. Okay, we sell through many of all of these. Honestly, we sell through many full sets. Always, daily, every single day we sell multiple Prospectors. That's just how high demand these products are. They're always being sold. They're always being sold for a pretty competitive price. They're always being bought for a pretty competitive price as well. So you've got the 1982, the 1983, and the 1984. These all have the E logo here on the back. And then the last 4 years, 84, 85, 86, 87, you notice there's actually an eagle on each and every one of these. And so this is kind of how the standard production American Prospector rounds go. E logo, E logo, E logo, eagle logo, eagle logo, eagle logo, eagle logo. So standard production round would lead you to believe that, okay, interesting. After 84, Engelhard must have decided, hey, you know, sometime in the year 84, they must have decided, hey, we're going to switch the dies. We're going to start putting this eagle on the back. That's what most people think, honestly. That's honestly what most people think. Now, once you start getting into the proof variations, though, the story turns out to be a little bit different, because actually the variations are slightly a little bit different when it comes down to these variations, okay? Now, on the proof variations, the first thing I'm going to go ahead and say is there's actually a 1988. Okay, so your standard production rounds, you go from 1982, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87. Okay, when it comes down to the proof variations, there's actually a couple more extra options here for you to collect as well, and there's also some fewer options for you to collect as well. And so let me explain that a little bit. Okay, you got your 1982 Prospector. Okay, now coinciding with the 1982 Prospector, you've also got yourselves a 1982 Prospector Proof. So this is your Prospector Proof, and this is your Prospector. So immediately you'll be able to tell the difference if you had these up in front of you. There's no mistaking the two. You'll notice that you've got the frosted elements here on the 1982 Prospector here, whereas you don't have any frosting on the Prospector here. Now, one thing important to note here, and which will be important to note when you were kind of looking at the Prospector proofs from years moving forward, is that the 1982 has the least refined frosting, I would say. You notice here how the frosting just kind of curves up there to the background. You'll notice on future variations of the Prospector proof that frosting is a little bit more refined and a little bit more filled out. So this is something to note, right? When you're looking, if you ever have the opportunity to come across the 1982 Prospector proof, that's something to note. You know, if you don't see, you know, if you see a very refined frosting there, or if you see something that's a little bit less refined than that, that should stick out to you as like, hey, maybe I'm looking at a fake or something. You know, if you don't see frosting on this element and it's just something that looks like a very clean Prospector, sometimes people will say, hey, look at this proof-like Prospector because it's so clean. Well, yeah, you can call it proof-like all you want, but that doesn't make it a proof. This is a Prospector proof. This is a standard production 1982 round. And so now you can see the difference. Now you flip them over, you got the same sort of thing going on. The E here is far more defined and pops out very, very much on the Prospector proof. Very, very exciting. So there's consistency between the standard production 1982 round and the Prospector proof 1982 round. Now, when it comes down to the 1983, that's where things get a little bit interesting, okay? Because we had an E logo here, right? And we've got an E logo here as well as here. The 1982 has an E logo, And then we've got one 1983 standard production round with an E logo. And then from our understanding in 1984 is that's when they switched over to a different reverse, right? It seems to us that all of 1983 they were using the E logo, and then they switched over from the E logo to the Eagle logo sometime in 1984 according to standard production rounds. But what's really interesting is actually the switch was made from E logo to Eagle actually in 1983, not in 1984. A lot of people don't know that. You know, there's a delay between the dies because they have many different products that they're making. And so actually what happened was they started using the Eagle reverse die before 1984. It's actually began on the proof variations. They must have used the proof maybe as a test for the Eagle. And so now when it comes down to the 1983 Prospector proof, you got yourself this very rare 1983 Prospector proof. And this one right here, friends, has got an E logo on the back. So now when I go on to allengelhard.com, I go down to their AG rounds, there will be a nice indication of all the different proof variations. And so now when it comes down to the 1983 Prospector, this one right here with the with the E logo reverse is only 250 minted. Very low mintage round here. One of the lower mintage, harder to find proofs, but certainly not the hardest to find. Okay. Something interesting to note is that in 1983, they also, believe it or not, had an Eagle reverse. So here in 1983, you've just got your single E logo. But over here, you got two 1983 proofs. Two 1983 proofs. And you've got both reverses here. So actually what happened was when they were making the proofs, they actually switched the die from E logo to Eagle. Probably were happy with that and then decided, hey, we're going to replicate this on our standard production rounds. And so what's interesting is that there's actually not two reverses on the 1984 Prospectors on the proof variations like there is on the standard production commercial rounds. Actually, they made the switch on the commercial rounds in 1984 and then kept the Eagle permanent here. But actually, when it comes down to the proof variation, there's only a 1984 E logo proof. That is the hardest proof to find. The only person I personally know in the world who has one of those is Three Toe Stacker. And I don't know if I'll ever find somebody else that I know that has a 1984 Prospector proof with an E logo on the back. Because there is only one type of 1984 Prospector proof. It only has an E logo and it's 50 minted. Okay, that is the most highly counterfeited Prospector proof. I've seen fakes of the Prospector proof pop up from time to time and they're very easily recognizable, but I've only ever seen one genuine 1984 Prospector proof 50 minted, and that would be in Three Toe Stacker's collection. So it's very interesting. Silverstruck has covered this topic before, and maybe a lot of people didn't realize. I, in fact, didn't realize how crazy this was. But when it comes down to the Prospector proofs, there's a whole new story that opens up. It becomes very confusing. When did the Eagle actually come out? But when you look at the proof variations, it's very definitive. You can definitively say that the Eagle was born in 1983 for sure, without a shadow of a doubt. But it's very interesting that they have the E logo, they've got the E logo, they've got the Eagle here in 83, and then in 1984 they only have an E logo proof variation, which I don't have an example to show you because that's one round that I don't have, and I don't think I will ever have, to be honest. So two versions of the 83 Prospector, two versions of the 84 Prospector on the commercial standard rounds, a single 84 on the Prospector proof, and then we go into the 500 minted 1985 Prospector proof. And here you've got consistency. You've got an Eagle here on the back and the Prospector here on the front. So that's very interesting. Back to normalcy. Then you've got yourself a 1986 Prospector right here of the proof variation. And notice here, Notice here, what I was talking about earlier, you notice how on these later variations, the frosting has become more refined. You see that? So now it kind of leads up all the way to the edge there, and you've got a much more refined and filled out frosting here on these later versions. So that's something to note as well when you're looking at the Prospector proof. You might see one pop up. You might want to do a little bit of a secondary check to make sure that what you're looking at is the real deal. Okay? Now, when it comes down to the 1987, there is no 1987 proof. There isn't one. They just don't have one. But what they do have is a 1988 Prospector proof, believe it or not, and that was produced specifically with Summit Bank Corporation. And it's only 100 minted, and I've never seen one available for sale. And if I ever see one, I'll have to really question what the source is, because it would just be very odd for one to just pop up after all these years, right? So they're very, very difficult to find. Probably will never see one pop up, not at a reasonable price, right? There's a lot of collectors who are collecting the proofs, and so they're, one of the few things that maybe they have to add to their collection, including mine, is that Summit Bank Corporation 1988 Prospector proof. That's a very difficult one to find. And then I would say also the next most difficult to find would be the actually rarer 50 minted 1984 Prospector proof, and that's something that, again, I've only seen it in Three Toes' collection, and so he was very, very fortunate to have picked that up. And he's also himself working on the Prospector proofs as well. And so these are the two proofs that are missing from my collection, I would say, the 1984 proof and the 1988 proof. I'm very, very happy to have examples of the rest of them. And there's actually, for the Prospector proofs, there's actually another Prospector proof that many people are not aware of, and that would be actually this right here. This is the Canadian Prospector, and you see it's undated, right? It's an undated Canadian Prospector proof. This one right here is 250 minted, and I just absolutely love this because it's very, very unique from any other Prospector proof round. It's got a goose. It's got a Canadian goose on the reverse. There's no eagle. There's no E logo. It's just a purely unique round, and I'm very, very excited to have this to the collection. This is actually the first round that you'll see when you look at allengelhard.com's AG round section. So this is a nice, I would say, partial complete proof set. We've got a missing 84 and we've got a missing 88, but this kind of goes over sort of what are the nuances, what are the differences between your standard production round, right, as well as your proof rounds. You've got your goose here, you've got your E logo here, you've got another E logo here, you've got your eagles now as well. So I find this to be very, very exciting, and I hope you learned something when it comes down to the standard commercial production rounds versus the proof variations. Now that we've had a chance to kind of go over the nuances behind the proofs and the standard production prospect rounds, I think we need to go and deal with the highly anticipated package opening from the one and only Don't Ask. So let's go ahead and take care of business and take a look and see what we got in store. What really caught my eye about these pours from Don't Ask was the fact that they actually have this really cool ripple effect that he made happen. And what I particularly liked, and the specific examples that I was really seeking out, were these ripple effect that he got, where he got a little bit of a dot in the middle, and it looked kind of like, to be quite frank, it looked like a nipple. And so I called it the nipple ripple, and I ensured that I got all the nipple ripple bars. And I think he tried to replicate the nipple ripple, and he had some varying degree of success, but I made sure to grab all of the nipple ripple examples so that I would have them available for other people who may want to also purchase them. So take a look and see what I'm talking about here when I'm talking about the nipple ripple. I specifically seek these out. And so I'm hoping that the nipple ripple will take off and that other hand-poured artists will start trying to replicate the nipple ripple. So you see this right here? You see these little beautiful cinnamon roll-esque bars? These are mine now. All 5 ounces of them. 5 1-ounce bars, beautiful nipple ripple. I would say out of these, my favorites would have to be these two for sure. These are definitely my favorites. I'm going to keep this as a nipple set for sure. It's a nice set of nipples here. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at these 2 bars, and the others, well, you're just going to have to wait for another time to take a look at those bars. I'm only going to look at 2 of them right now. So maybe if you want to buy one, once they're available for sale, then you could take a look at them, or I don't know, we'll see. But for now, we're just going to take a look at these beauties. Wow, I just love that little cinnamon roll type of vibe that these bars give out. Almost looks like an owl staring right at you as well. And so I really like the uniqueness of these bars a lot. Now, take a look at the back stamp here. Pretty cool. What I find to be interesting is you've got a little bit of a, at least on this bar, it's a noticeable little nick here, which I kind of like. I kind of like that. So I don't know if this little pigtail is where it's like taken off or what, but I see a similar kind of one right over here as well. So maybe Don't Ask can kind of let us know what's going on there, but I do like that little rivet over there. Not much else to say about these bars other than they're gorgeous. There's not going to be any of these available right now on the SBS website, so right now you're going to have to hit up Don't Ask personally if you want any of the nipple ripple bars or just the general ripple bars. One thing that we do have available by Don't Ask is his discontinued run of 20-gram skull and crossbones bars, and those have been on special on the website. Now they're back up to regular price, so if you want to grab one of those, support Don't Ask, support SBS, you can pick one of his 20-gram fractional bars up. Those are still up on the website for $50, and expect to see some of these bars make their way out into the community in the future. Not quite yet, not quite ready to part away with these beauties yet, but I just wanted to show them off a little bit and do a little bit of unboxing for our wonderful friend just north of us here. So I'm very, very excited to pick these up. I'm very, very excited to show you all the prospectors, and I hope you had a wonderful time watching. Sorry for going over the time limit that we're required to stay under, but there's no requirement. See ya.